Hello dear watercolors, and welcome to another video. Today I'm going to be discussing about the creative block and what is my strategy to overcome that. So I start with notebook that I don't feel bad about, and this is a student grade Canson paper. You can see that the blooms are happening, the color spreads, and it dries very quickly. But I did a couple sketches with the same subject just to feel more comfortable. Their purpose is not to make something beautiful, but to practice. You can see that this is not an exceptional sketch, but it's a preparation for this stage. When I feel comfortable enough, I start using arches paper and apply all the techniques that I already practiced on the scrap paper. Another method that I like to use to unlock my creativity is to find photos from my friends or family that speak to me and reinterpret them using swatches of colors that I see the final painting looking good in. I got these ideas from the Creative Block book that's been written by Danielle Krisha, and there were a lot of good ideas on how to unlock your creativity in there, and I'm gonna plan to do those in the following videos. If you guys are interested, let me know below in the comments. And for today, I chose one of the photos that my best friend Petra took in Romania. She recently started to hike a lot and just taking photos of amazing landscapes that honestly I haven't seen in my own country so far. But when I go back to visit, I plan to do a lot of those and paint outside, plein air, very spontaneous landscapes. Maybe use a different kind of paper because this is a Strathmore. This is still not very professional paper. I didn't feel confident enough. And you know what? That's not a bad thing. Like, sometimes I don't feel like using expensive paper on experiments. Sometimes I do, but when I want the pressure off my shoulders, I don't dive into very good paper. I recently heard about Kilimanjaro paper and I plan to try it. It's supposed to be drying slower, so that would be make it a perfect candidate for plein air. I tried only arches cold pressed and it's been working pretty well. So here I softened the edges of the clouds because I felt like they were too crisp and I want a more dreamy look of my scene. I'm using almost exactly the same blue for the distant mountains because I have the atmospheric perspective in my mind, so that means that the mountains that are further from us, they're going to be containing more blue and their value is going to be much lighter. They're kind of peeking from the fog. They're peeking out. Now as I go closer, I increase the pigment in the water mix and I also add more green. The bottom edge I always soften up with a brush that has almost no water. It's like damp brush. And now I am working off a photo, but I'm trying to put my own interpretation and just modify the composition according to how I think it should look better. Do not be afraid to do that. Here I'm using a Schminke, yellow ochre, and burnt sienna. A combination that would show a patch of grass that is more burnt by the sun. And here I'm using this fan brush to suggest vegetation, and I think it looks a little bit more like grass. So the layer that I'm building below it is gonna be more in the shadow. So that hill is more in the shadow comparing to this hill we are on right now, looking in the valley down. So I can fix that by just using this round brush and going on top of the first layer, just ignoring the edges that I already created with the fan brush. For the greenery, I'm not using the green straight from the tube. It is permanent green olive, and I'm mixing a little bit of yellow ochre into it to make it look more natural, and also to make my colors don't stand out too much, be a more harmonious and cohesive piece. I was mixing the yellow ochre that I already used in that patch of land. Now, to suggest that the atmospheric pressure, I'm gonna show the shadow of the clouds, and that's gonna be pretty flat because I want the clouds to look like they sit on top of a plane, like an invisible straight plane. The valley needs more lights and shadows, and there's a lot of agricultural land in there. I could go ahead and add a lot of contrast, but I'm a little scared to do that, so I don't want to ruin it. I want it to look soft. So I'm pre-wetting some of the areas. I don't want my brush to show like the brush strokes. I want the color to do its own thing and create shapes by itself, just guided as a suggestion by my brush. My center of attention is on the third from the right side of the painting and 2/3 from the left side of the painting. So that light area right between the mountains, that is my focal point. And all the lines are kind of wrapping around that center point. So all the circles will lead you to that point. Here I'm adding more or less green. I'm actually adding a little bit of phthalo green because I think it looks a little bit too dead. Just experimenting, adding some areas that go lower and heels that go and wrap around that little lake. I'm not trying to copy any specific, just trying to follow the pattern. Always keep in mind that my center focal point is on the right, a third way from the right. I'm adding some texture in the lower land just to make it look more dynamic, and I'm putting dots with the end of my brush. And no worries if this doesn't look good, I can pat it dry with some cloth and that will make it lighter. But I think this looks good because automatically once it's gonna dry, the value is gonna go down. Sprinkling some salt in controlled areas. I'm not gonna put it everywhere. I just want kind of an S that leads you to that focal point in the background. I want to create a little bit more texture with that salt, not too much. Now I hope you guys enjoyed this process with me, and I am as surprised as you guys are. I didn't know what what the watercolor exactly was going to do. I just knew overall the values that I was going to obtain and the shapes overall, not the details. If you plan to work more loose in watercolor, you have to let go of strictness and perfectionism. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and if you are in the creative block, go ahead, use your student grade paper and just mess around, and that's all you need to do. Before you know it, you're gonna be out of the creative block. Thank you so much for watching this video, and give it a thumbs up, subscribe, and see you in the next video. Thank you.